Okay, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So thank you all very much for joining our call this morning. This is our monthly April statewide phone call for women veterans with Calvet. I am Lindsay Sin, Deputy Secretary for Women Veterans Affairs, and I'm very excited to have you join us. Today we are going to discuss a few upcoming retreats for women veterans here in California with two presenters. We have Lee Lesser with us and Lola Mondragon. Both are going to talk about the events that their respective organizations are going to organize and host for healing for women veterans. I think we all know the importance as advocates and as veterans for women to seek treatment that is a little bit outside of traditional healthcare or medicine, at least westernized medicine, and that focuses more on healing somebody mind, body, and spirit. And so that's why I'm so excited to have these two presenters today, because they're going to discuss how they're pursuing the healing for women for mind, body, and spirit, not just medicinal healing, but many different forms of healing. So we're very excited to have them on. I have started the call recording, so we will have this call available from our website for future reference if you'd like to go back and check it. Just a few housekeeping items. I'm going to ask everybody to mute their phones. You can do that by using *6. Please monitor your phone. Some people's phones switch to hold signal, and so we'll get some background music if your phone accidentally goes to hold, so please monitor that. If people are unable to mute their phones and we get a lot of background noise, I will go ahead and mute all of the participants, and I will ask our presenters to unmute their phones so that they can present and speak.
I can hear.
Are we getting a little bit of reverb now? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, sounds like we've got everybody on. So another thing I'm going to do is we use Join Me software online so that people can actually see some slides that we put up and get some more information via the web. We also have a chat window open, so if you're using Join Me, please feel free to use our chat window to ask questions. We will be taking questions for the presenters.
I'm needed for work. Don't come bugging me. Bye.
Okay, so please remember, you guys need to mute your phones. And so we will open our chat window so that you can ask questions of me, and then you can also ask questions of the participants towards the end of our call. So right now I'm going to go ahead and put the screen sharing on so that you can see our PowerPoint presentation and that we can share information from our presenters. So this is going up right now. Okay. So the first thing I'd like to do is give a few updates from Calvet so that you know what's going on here in the department for women veterans. So the first for updates, really we are focusing on advocacy for the rest of the year. We're doing some education around military sexual trauma. I've talked about this a little bit before, but we're developing a training that we'll be giving April 30th to rape crisis centers throughout California. We're also going to focus on training county veteran service officers, and so you'll probably see some communications from our office about resources that we'll be providing to veteran survivors and to frontline staff that are serving them. We continue to work on Prop 41, which is the Veterans Housing and Home Improvement Act, Homeless Prevention Act, to ensure that veterans and women veterans are getting adequate housing through those funds. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody, and then I'll ask our presenters to unmute their phones, okay? So I'm going to mute you guys.
Get out the hallway.
Okay, thank you. So to continue with the updates, we are continuing to work with the Veterans Housing and Homeless Prevention Act to ensure that women veterans are going to have adequate access to housing and sensitive and stable and safe resources and housing resources for them in the future. So I think as these funds are released for development projects, you'll see more movement around building housing for women veterans. And then we're also working with the Northern California VA healthcare system to do an assessment of the needs of women veterans in rural areas, and we hope that that project wraps up in July, and we hope by then we'll have some great recommendations for Northern California VA on how to better serve women in their system. A few other things we're doing in the area of outreach activities. We've been very busy for the month of March. There have been many, many different events going on for women all throughout the state, which is fantastic. We hosted a reception here in Sacramento on March 18th, and I've been to at least 5 or 6 events throughout the state, including Fontana, Alameda, Los Angeles. Just so many great events going on all throughout to recognize Women's History Month and Women's Military History Week. We've posted a few photos on our website of the event that we held, and then the proclamation from the governor is still available from our website if anybody's interested in seeing that. And that's, our website is calvet.ca.gov/womenvets. For the month of April, I'll be traveling to Los Angeles at the Bob Hope Patriotic Hall April 18th to participate in a town hall format where women veterans are welcome to attend, and they can ask questions to Calvet, they can ask questions to me, and this is part of the regular programming going on at the Bob Hope Hall for women veterans. They do a once-monthly luncheon and networking event on the 3rd Saturday of the month. So if you're in the area, then I hope that you can make that. And additionally, through outreach, we'll be working on updating our web content, so we'll try and deliver a very different format of information from our website, and hopefully you'll see the beginnings of that next month in May. So that's it for the update for us. So I'm going to go ahead and begin with introducing our first speaker so that she can discuss more about honoring the path of the warrior. So this is Ms. Lee Klinger-Lesser, who is a founder of co-founder of Honoring the Path of the Warrior, which was founded in 2008. And also with us is Diane Ferguson, who's on the call, who is also one of the members of Honoring the Path of the Warrior. She may or may not want to speak, but Lee will at least speak about the great things they're doing for women veterans, and then we can also ask her questions at the end of this call. So Lee, I'd like to ask you to unmute your phone now using *6 so that you can go ahead and present, and I'm very excited to welcome you to our call.
Thank you very much. We're really, really pleased to be here. And Diane, please feel free to jump in and add whatever you would like to add. And I'm very happy to answer questions, when that's the time for that. It's interesting, when we first started Honoring the Path of the Warrior, and we started because my colleague and I, both of us are mindfulness teachers and meditation teachers. Neither one of us had military experience, but we felt that the mindfulness practices that we teach would have a real impact on veterans if they were interested. And so over these years, we've kind of co-created this program, and it's grown organically with the input of veterans, and veterans have helped to shape what we do at every step of the way. And when we were first holding our events, it was predominantly men. And there would be maybe 1 or 2 women veterans. And the women veterans came to us and said that they felt that they needed events just for women. And so that's how we began to do we have a combination of different events, and our mission is to provide returning veterans a safe environment, enable them to rediscover meaning, purpose, and joy in their lives through mindfulness, meditation, and community. And those elements for us are really important, is to provide these tools within a safe community that veterans know they can come to. And so we hold mixed gender events, but we also hold events particularly for women veterans. And we hold, because of the feedback from women, we began this 5-night retreat, which we hold at actually a wonderful retreat center. It's called Tassajara, and it's a Zen retreat center. And we've held 4 retreats for women there. And then as a way to continue to support the ongoing integration of mindfulness practice into people's lives and to continue to have community beyond retreat. We have a 3-month practice period specifically for women where we begin with a weekend, and then we have a weekly practice that we send out to people so that they can integrate being more aware and finding kind of ground in simple activities and kind of finding the safety and refuge of kind of coming back into your own body as a place of safety and as a place of a real resource. And so we send out practices, and the practice may be pause for 3 breaths before you answer the phone. They're very simple practices, but when you practice them, they actually have an impact. And then veterans also have buddies where they check in with their buddy once a month, and they check in with us as facilitators. So there's a way of continuing to build community. And then we also have one-day events that those are mixed gender events, but more and more women are coming because they've found that HPW offers a place of safety. So there's on the website you can see there's a photograph of our 4 Tassajara retreats, and the New York Times did an article about us last summer. They came to the women's retreat, and our retreats include teaching the practice of meditation, mindfulness, where you kind of learn how to build concentration, to find more calm, to find more ease, to focus on breath. These very simple grounding tools that are available all the time, that are resources for people at any time. We also spend time in nature, which is healing in itself, and we do art projects that are also bring out a different element for folks, and we share stories, and that's been a very fundamental part of our retreats, where people have a safe place to actually share stories that they haven't shared before with anybody, and to feel like there is a sense of safety in being able to be witnessed by each other. And many women also talked about how this was so important to them because during their military experience, there wasn't a sense of safety with other women vets or community. So to build that sense of safety has been very important. And so we hold a time where women can share 10 minutes to speak about whatever they want to speak about. And in that, we create a ritual that holds space. So that ritual is also very important. Just simple things like having a form, which the military is filled with rituals and forms. So to have a form of just being able to acknowledge what's happening, so as a woman speaks for 10 minutes, and then we have a way for everybody else who's there to kind of honor that person and acknowledge what the courage they've heard. So our retreats are often they're not simple. There's a lot of intensity when people are sharing painful experiences, but because it's held by practice and by this community of people who have shared experience, it becomes very powerful and healing. And mindfulness practice. There's a lot of research about the impact of mindfulness and meditation. How it actually really changes neural pathways in the brain, develops more neural plasticity. It helps to reduce stress, anxiety, depression, and other symptoms that are often connected to post-traumatic stress and to military sexual trauma. But so having this practice that can become a real healing tool and other people is very meaningful for veterans who have been participating. And veterans often talk about the power of their experience and the power of, somebody just called me the other day and talked about how when she first came, so many people tend to self-isolate. And so to feel this kind of safety and the support of other veterans and a place where people can speak. We have a Facebook page that's specific for women veterans who've been on these retreats. So there's, again, another way for veterans to follow up with each other. And we have, in the beginning of our retreat, we actually have a table where we ask people to bring a symbol of something that's important and meaningful in their lives, and just to talk about it. And this table holds people's objects and stories. And again, it's kind of these rituals of paying attention, of being able to take an experience that somebody is living and have it be able to come out of isolation, and little by little to trust more and more that you are not alone with what you've experienced. So this sense of community is fundamental to what we're doing, and the community that people had in the military, to be able to find a sense of community as civilians, but with women, with other women, has been very meaningful to people. And those are kind of fundamental elements of what we do. And part of what we do is also have joy and fun. That there's a sense of kinship and being able to recover this ability to play and connect. So having the space for that is very important. And we also, we're mentoring veteran leaders, which is also a significant aspect of what we do, which is that we want veterans to be facilitating for each other. So we're in the middle of our second year of our first veteran leadership program, and this program has 5 women and 5 men. It's our pilot program. We're developing it, and veterans are helping to plan our events and to facilitate our events, both our one-day events and our retreats and our practice period. And so having other veterans who have these common experiences and are developing their capacity and this other path of service is very significant. And our people who are eligible to participate in our programs are veterans who have served since 1990. And when we have limited numbers, then first priority goes to people who are OIF, OEF, or OND veterans. And otherwise, as long as we don't have limited numbers, then anybody who has served since 1990. So we've had, since 2011, we've been able to provide our longer retreat for 78 women. Right now, we have 20 women who can come. We have we have an upcoming retreat at our 5-day retreat is coming up, and we have a huge waiting list. And one day when we put it out there, it was already the slots. We got enough applications to fill it. So we're in the process of confirming, and we've had requests from all over the country. So the hunger and the need is so powerful. And one of our hopes and our goals is that we want to be able to create these models of things that work and support people in other parts of the country to be able, and the state, to be able to also hold retreats and build community for women veterans. We have a protocol that we've written, which is on our website, and anybody can request it for free, where we talk about what we've learned about integrating mindfulness practice and making it available to veterans. And that's a tool we'd love to make available for people. So that's a resource. So our hope is that we can continue to build what works and to continue to build our own local community and build a model that other communities can integrate and adapt. And that's something that we are looking at how we can grow and support that to happen. So I don't want to go over the time, but I'm happy to answer more questions as we, at the end. Our women's retreat is coming up. Our practice period is in the fall. It's from October to January. And then we have one-day events, and those are all posted both on this PowerPoint and in on our website. So I don't know if you want me to. I'm happy to go on or to stop and let you move into the next person.
Well, Lee, why don't we, because we will have some questions for you. I've got a question on our chat window and some questions that I'd like to ask or have the audience ask if I don't get to them. But let's reserve that till the end. That way we know we've got enough time for our second presenter. I think some people will have great questions for you. Thank you so much. This sounds like a marvelous program. I would love the opportunity to participate. I know many of us would love the opportunity to participate. So I hope that we can do as a community exactly what you're saying, which is provide this elsewhere, either throughout the country or in different parts of California. Obviously, the capacity that you have to do this is limited because, it's only a few people and so much of your time goes into this. But so it would be really great to see how this program can expand. So we'll definitely ask you some questions towards the end of our time. So now I'd like to introduce our next presenter. Lola Mondragon is currently a PhD candidate at UCSB. She served 4 years active duty in the U.S. Navy, and she's also a military dependent. Lola is a survivor of military sexual assault, so her own experience plus her background as a veteran and a background as an Indigenous person gives her the opportunity to want to create with Ellie Payne and Crow the first Indigenous Women Veterans National Healing Circle. So I'm going to now ask Lola to talk a little bit about the event and retreat that they're planning and to kind of give some details about that. And then I will also bring that up on our webinar to share their flyer. So Lola, I'm going to ask for you to press *6 on your phone so that you can present a little bit about your program as well.
Thank you, Lindsay, so much for the opportunity. I'd like to begin with by talking a little bit of to contextualize where this is coming from. So I'd like to say that the return to traditional sacred ceremonial forms of Indigenous healing, specifically geared to heal and help reintegrate Latina, Chicana, and Native soldiers, is being practiced outside the purview of governmental control over their health as the way to decolonize. The use of Indigenous healing methods, including sweat lodge ceremonies, talking circles, vision quests, songs, drumming, stories, gourd dances, limpias, curanderismo, sobadoras, and more, which are frequently not talked about or understood or even known, are preferred by Indigenous veterans as a practice, much like 80% of the world practices it. Native veterans have often expressed the benefit and needs of their way of healing. For example, Sam Smith, a Navajo code talker, confirmed that veterans must address the spiritual damages from war or risk suffering from a host of problems such as alcoholism and PTSD. Native American cultures understand this and conduct lengthy religious ceremonies to cleanse and heal the spirits of veterans from the contagion of war. And I've participated in one of those such ceremonies, the Welcome Back Warrior Ceremony. Latino veterans likewise sought spiritual healing from curanderas because they too ascribe to Indigenous healing practices. These practices have historically been effective in helping communities survive the effects of genocide, reservation displacement, deportation of family members, lack of access to health care, economic exploitation, racism, residential schools, killing at the hands of law enforcement because they are people of color, and continued historical, incessant, and intergenerational trauma are continued effects of this colonization. The Department of Veterans Affairs has provided some resources for Native American soldiers, such as sweat lodges and talking circles. But the pervasive patriarchal legacy of colonialism adds an extra layer of oppression and erasure to women veterans that must contend with the lack of resources and delegitimization as they walk in for care and services. The lack in addressing the needs of women veterans, as many of you know, has recently prompted the request by Congress members of an IG investigation because of the blatant neglect of services for women. The mistreatment of women veterans, especially of Indigenous women, has consequently motivated these women to search elsewhere for relevant ethno-culturally based health care and healing. The outreach of relevant healing by these Indigenous women veterans, including the Latinas and Chicanas that I speak of, must be centered and I attempt to reason some of the needs for this first Indigenous woman veteran healing circle and your support through my own experiential experience and what we're trying to do through the umbrella of Turtle Women Rising. So to begin with, I, as you mentioned, am a veteran, a survivor of military sexual assault. I have recently participated with a group which we fall under now, which is Turtle Women Rising, which was founded by Ellie Painted Crow. And at the time, I was doing just research on my dissertation, and I didn't know what specifically I was going to do, but I knew that it had to be important and for my community, that it had to be something relevant and for the sake of social justice. As I started drumming, I started shaking, and I didn't understand the reasoning for the shaking. I was just invited to the open drum, and I'm a Chickasaw Chicana, but I'm an urban Indian, so I did not know many of the ways of my grandmothers and great-grandmothers. That was taken away, of course, because of colonialism, much like our language and our culture and our religion and our ways of healing were taken away. So this physical shaking really surprised me. You know, I started off in engineering, so I'm pretty logical in the way that I think, and so to feel this and to start just crying and tearing up was just illogical to me, and I couldn't understand the reasons why. After participating in drumming for some time, I started to recognize the reasons and some of the causes of why it was that I didn't understand this form of healing. And of course, it had to do with erasure. You know, this belief that our forms of healing are, unless they're scientifically proven, they're illegitimate, right? So we have to focus on Western medicine. So in that sense, I really appreciate that you're bringing up the mind, body, spirit, because the spirit is a big component of our people. It is just as important as the body and the mind. And so not only did I participate in that, but I was invited to a sweat lodge. I participated in equine therapy. I was doing sobadora, which is massaging from a ceremonial standpoint, and I got to meet medicine women. And, you know, I can honestly tell you without a doubt that had I not taken that path, I wouldn't be here today. And I, like many veteran women, did not go to the VA. I still have a really hard time being in that atmosphere because of my own personal beliefs of complacency by many of the people that are now working in that system as veterans themselves. Complacency through silence of a lot of us, a lot of women that suffered this and must live with military sexual trauma and PTSD. Another component that frequently gets erased and not talked about is racism. Racism is very prevalent within the military, and that too passes on to, you know, into these other spheres of healing that continue to delegitimize what we know and what we trust and who we are as a people and what has worked since time immemorial for generations and generations. This has been our way of healing, and of course we now have studies done, and they talk about EMDR and somatics and all these other forms of healing and mindfulness. All that derives from these indigenous forms of healing. These are central to, and have always been central to our communities. So part of what we're trying to do is to establish the first Indigenous Women Veterans National Healing Circle. And one of the reasons that we're doing that is because we want to call out, if you will, those invisible women. Just like me, I did not identify as a veteran for well over 15 years because of this sheer feeling of shame and, you know, that indoctrination that it was your fault that this happened to you. So there was a lot of self-blame, and I can and have seen and have heard many women coming back from Afghanistan and other places who talk about it as if though, you know, still the same belief, it was my fault. But there's also the added component of classism and racism that comes into play, and we need to really pay attention to that. So I think that that's what's central to the retreat, is to pay attention to those multiple intersectional issues that are constantly present amongst Indigenous women, Latina women, Chicana women. So part of this retreat, which will be held September 25th through the 27th, and it'll be held up in Ventura County, is going to be inclusive of a drumming circle. We're going to have soladoras, which are masseuses. We're going to have a location for Sweat Lodge, and we've already asked the Sweat Lodge leader if she could lead that, and she was very kind and gracious, and her husband's a veteran, so she's very, helpful in those ways. We have located an equine therapy, Reigns of Hope. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, down in Ojai, who recently got a grant, so hopefully they'll be helpful to us. And we will have some medicine women. And I know that the recommendation of the medicine woman comes from Ellie Painted Crow, and she's known as medicine woman for a really long time. So we're going to having a cleansing ceremony. And these might seem rudimentary to many, but to us it's a way of stepping in, of stepping forward, of coming back, from a very kind of indoctrinated stance that Western medicines and pills and all this is what's necessary. So it's not, it's very sacred, and it's a ceremony, of course, but it's not outside the purview of anybody that has been raised in Western society that is part of, a genocide population, which is the Native American. One of the components that we hope to do in incorporating this is hoping that we can have these women pay it forward. And by this I mean identifying as veterans themselves and speaking of the impact of following the Red Road, following these forms of healing. And one of the most important elements, I think, for us is understanding that even though this is a 3-day retreat, that we will build community, that we will stay in touch with each other. And then at the same time, while we're there, we're going to have a lot of volunteers, but many of them veteran women themselves. But we want to find resources for them when they get home, so that way they can continue these forms of practices. And one thing before I finish, I wanted to mention that we are going to have child care. So if, many of these women end up being single parents, because of the high rates of incarceration of people of color, Latino and Black men. And also that we have to pay attention to the need to incorporate not only veterans from current generations, but from World War II, the Vietnam War, Korean War, that these women have been silenced for decades. And that they have a lot of wisdom as elders in our communities, and that we need to pay attention to them as well and honor that and respect that journey. Ellie's on the phone with me. I don't know if there's anything I missed, but she's my go-to person, my mentor. Ellie, are you on the phone?
Yeah, I'm here. I just, I think, you've covered most of it, and maybe, I forgot how much time we had, but I don't know if there's time. I guess I just want to say that just what we're doing it, we really want to consider it a gathering and not a retreat. This is a time to come together, and there's a lot of things that get spoken in these circles that don't get spoken outside the circle. So people are often shocked to hear that we're talking about what you're talking about, because the truth is Native veterans don't want to sound unpatriotic, so they don't talk about their racism that they experience in the military. They don't talk about it with each other because they don't want to sound unpatriotic. But when I go to ceremony, I hear it over and over. So I just want to say that, we're not trying to do this. We're going to do this. One way or another, we're going to make this happen. And I want this support Lola in making this grow and making it something that we can do on a regular basis. So, any questions for Lola, it's great. If you have any questions for me, that's great too. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Lola and Ellie. So I would like to open it up for questions now. We have about 20 minutes left. I'll take a few minutes at the end of the call just to talk about some wrap-ups, but I would love to open it up to questions from our group. You're welcome to use the chat window to ask questions that I can answer, and then also I'll go ahead and unmute everybody at this point so that people can ask questions of either Lee and Diane, or of Lola and Ellie, or of me, and then I'll try and get us to answer some questions as well, or I'll try and ask some questions as well that I have or that the group may have but are reluctant to ask. So first I'm going to unmute everybody, so just bear with me 1 second while I do this. Okay, so that should allow everybody to ask their questions. So if anyone has questions for our presenters, go ahead. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start because I have a lot of questions. We want to make sure that these two events are well advertised and known, that people are able to sign up and actually attend and get the most out of this that they can. So to start with honoring the path of the warrior, Lee and Diane, are these retreats free of cost for women veterans that want to attend?
Yes, they are. We raise the money, so no veteran has to pay for anything. We don't have money for transportation, so if people are coming, from a further distance, they have to cover their transportation.
Okay. And then also to Lee and Diane, how can we help promote this program? Is this something that people can, if we send the PDF out, can people share this, or would you just suggest they go to the website?
And Diane, you didn't have a chance to jump in. Do you want to jump in here with this, and add anything else you wanted to say?
No, Lee, thanks. I thought you covered everything, but I think as Lee mentioned earlier, we've had a lot of applications, and we would love help in just letting people know about our programs. And as we've said, our hope is to be able to raise the funds to have greater capacity to do this. So Lindsay, I'd be happy for people to send out the PowerPoint. That's great. But it's also fine to just put people directly in touch with me. That's probably easiest, and my email address and a phone number is there in the PowerPoint, so people can contact me, and I can send more detailed flyers, or just happy to have a conversation with anybody about it. And it's great to get people on our mailing list, so they just hear about new events as they're coming up.
Okay.
And I was going to reinforce that about the mailing list, because I think if people get on the mailing list, you'll get the flyer announcements of all of the events, like our one-day events and the practice period, and then it would be wonderful if people forward those out. So to be able to forward the flyers for every event, that means that will spread it so more and more people can know about it.
So for those of you on the call who don't have access to the flyer online right now, that is www.honoringthepath.org, and you can email Lee and Diane at info@honoringthepath.org. The phone number is area code 415-878-6479. And then you can find out about the upcoming retreats. You can get on their mailing list, and you can share the information with the network. Wonderful. So for women to apply, they just visit the website, and they're able to enroll or register for upcoming events should they be open and available. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, and I saw that somebody had flashed how many slots are available, and for the women retreat, it's 20 slots, and for the one-day events, we generally have there's room for 25 people. The one-day events are not just for women, but there are a lot of women there, so it's also a safe place for women. And the practice period, I think we have room for 16 people.
And And so is the April 18th event already full? It sounded like it was.
Oh, no, it's
no,
the
Oh, okay.
the 5-day retreat. April 18th, there's plenty of room for people.
Okay, plenty of room for April 18th, and that's a 5-day retreat?
No, sorry. The 5-day retreat starts in May.
Okay.
That's May 17th to the 22nd. That retreat is, that's already, I mean, people can still send in case there's room on the waiting list, but that one is, we've got a long waiting list already.
Okay.
But the 1-day event on April 18th, and then there's another one on June 6th, another one on August 15th. There's plenty of room in all of those.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. Great. And then finally, someone's asking, will you at some point open this up to women veterans who served prior to 1990?
You know, it really depends on what kind of funding we get and the capacity we have to serve people. And it's very hard for us to turn people away. And when we were starting, we realized that we had limited numbers. So our goal is to try and bring healing as soon as we can, and not have people have to carry unmet wounds for generations or for decades. So if we can increase capacity and be able to spread more and more retreats, we'd like to be able to do that. We just don't know what will happen.
And this is Diane, if I could just add to that. So I appreciate, Lindsay, you're asking, how people might be able to help let people know about us. But, that's in everyone's best interest, the having the ability for us to have greater capacity. So if people have ideas or contacts that they'd like to help us make that can help us increase our capacity, we'd obviously love to hear that.
Wonderful. Yeah, so this is also an opportunity for people to network together so that we can collectively help promote these programs. Very important. Good to know. Okay, so does anyone else have questions specifically for Lee and Diane? Either on the chat window or on the call. Okay. So now I'd like to ask some questions for Lola and Ellie for their National Healing Circle. So once again, same question to you both. Is this going to be a cost or an event that will be, or a circle that will be free of charge for women veterans? Any ideas?
Yes, it will be.
Go ahead, Ellie.
Yeah, it will be. And we know that one of the challenges is for them to get there, and so our intention is to be able to. We're only going to serve 13 women this first time around because we want to make sure they can tell their story. We want to make sure they are cared for by all of the people who are going to be up there to serve them. So there's only going to be 13 women, and this time around we're not going to have childcare. So our intention is actually to look for resources within that area out there and hopefully help them with a stipend to get to where we're going to hold this gathering, and there will be no charge to them.
Okay. And I know you guys are already raising money for the event.
Yes.
Like that's going well.
Well, I mean, what we can always use the support in that. We've raised a couple $1,000, but that's not going to cut it. We need to, and it's in a very short time. So financial support is, I guess, what most organizations are in need of. And so, because what we are doing is mostly done in places that's not really announced publicly. You go to the res or you go to ceremonial sites to do this stuff, and because we're putting it out there in this kind of way, we're also looking for support from communities from everywhere to make this happen, because it hasn't been done really at this level, and we want to make it an ongoing project.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, it's the first, Indigenous gathering of this sort, so for it being 2015, we know that we need to be cautious and careful, but we are starting something here that has not had the visibility in the past. So we would really support and help these women, but would request and hope that everybody that's on this call would look at our flyer and pass that around and share it with others, because we do know, as many of you know, funding is very crucial to start this off.
And then how do people apply, or how do women apply or enroll to be part of this?
I'm actually working on it right now in between moving, so they can go to www.turtlewomenrising.com, and we will have something that speaks about this gathering and an application with some questions for them, and they can submit them.
Yeah, so we formulated questions already, and we're getting that ready to put up on the website. But it's an intake process like any other. But being cautious of asking significant questions, but not intrusive questions, so that for the safety of themselves and for the other participants.
We also going to have a couple of psychologists there who will be there to support the work. Just to be there if they're needed. So to use the ceremonies that we know, but we also recognize that we're walking in the world, so we need to have
Almost finished.
accessible as well.
Absolutely. So it's important for these programs to offer the supportive mental health services. If someone's in crisis or something that could be necessary while they're at the retreat or event. So I think that's great to hear. And obviously there's enough resources among this community and contacts and networks to make that happen. So very good to hear. Yeah, it sounds like you're being, both parties, honoring the path of the warrior and the National Healing Circle, it sounds like both organizers are really focused on making sure that all of the participants are cared for and are responsible for their well-being while they're at the event and beyond. So that's good to hear, because certainly we want to be respectful and responsible of anyone that we're treating in that sort of capacity. So excellent to know. Okay, so does anybody else have any questions for Lola and Ellie? I think those are the questions I had, just so people could understand and know more about your event, and then obviously about Lee and Diane's retreat. So does anybody else have questions for the group via chat or on the phone? Doesn't sound like it. Okay, well, I want to say thank you so much to both of our presenters. I'm excited to help promote these retreats and events and the Healing Circle and share this with other people. Hopefully you'll both visit the websites of these organizations, turtlewomenrising.com and honoringthepath.org, so that you can really understand more about what each is doing and share these resources with women that may need it. And, as I mentioned before, and as both of these speakers have indicated, these are incredibly important avenues of healing that we need to make available to our women veterans. It is about the mind, body, spirit, and we recognize that Western medicine isn't always the answer, and there's a lot of other things that we could be doing to wrap our arms around how to heal ourselves and heal each other. So thank you again for being on the call. If you have any questions for us, our number is 916-653-1402, and then you can reach us at calvet.ca.gov to visit our website. Our email is womenveterans@calvet.ca.gov. I encourage everyone to get on our listserv and to sign up on our women's roster for our women veterans on the call. And then we'll have another call next month. It's the first Monday of each month, and so we are scheduled for Monday, May 4th at 10 a.m. And so I look forward to seeing you all or speaking with you all then. Thank you again, and this will be available, all this information will be available on our website once the call recording is posted, which will happen in the next day or two. So you will be able to access all of this from the website. So thank you to Lee, thank you to Diane, thank you to Lola and Ellie, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye.